Hey, um, welcome to Monday morning. This is our third class in our series on work with elderflower. So elder, again, specifically, the flower is what we've been focusing on in this little mini series. The elderberry is talked about abundantly elsewhere and abundantly on this channel. So for this series, I really wanted to focus on the elderflower. So 2 classes ago, we had a dedicated class on just elderflower, a plant exploration on that. The last week's class was elderflower for topical use. And today we're going to talk about elderflower for internal use. And again, I've brought other plants that we like to use along with elderflower so that we can see about formulation. Hey, Teresa. Hi, welcome. So we are, hey, Trinity. Yeah, made it for part 3. Yeah, right at the beginning. Haven't even started, haven't even taken a sip of tea. So I did make some elderflower tea so that we could have a memory of what it is we're working with, what it is we're formulating with. So we'll just go in and look at this. So what I want you to see is with this color, right? So this is elderflower tea. One of the things you're going to notice about it, hopefully, is that bright yellow color. So that yellow color, this is very, very hot. Oh, I know that glass is not a good conductor of heat, but this little glass cup is very, very hot. Yellow is the root of the word flavonoids. Y'all know how I love flavonoids. The root word of the word flavonoid is from the Latin for yellow. Flava means yellow. So oftentimes when you see that root in a word, there's going to be some yellow going on. Now, oftentimes when we are talking about yellow colors in plants, we are mostly talking about carotenoids, is what generally people think of. The carotenoids are the yellow-orange, right? Yellow-orange colors. So carotenoids would be things like the lutein in calendula that makes calendula that bright yellow color. And of course the beta carotene in carrots and oranges and things like that. Carotenoids are fat soluble, flavonoids are water soluble. So if you see an oil infusion of a normally clear oil, say like fractionated coconut oil, is nice when you're looking at pigment coloration. It's nice to have a really neutral colored, basically a clear oil. So fractionated coconut oil is pretty good for that. And you get extraction in there. You know, if the oil turns yellow, what you're largely looking at in your organoleptic testing is carotenoids and probably not flavonoids, because flavonoids are not oil soluble. They are water soluble. Here, we're looking at flavonoids because this is water soluble. These would not be carotenoids because they're not extracting in water. With an exception, there's a water soluble carotenoid in calendula, which is one of the reasons why calendula will turn a little bit yellow in there. All right, little bit of Latin for you to start the day. Good morning. But that does also inform us as to how best to use, or one of the ways that we would best use elderflowers. So we know just by looking at it, we have a deep golden colored tea. This is likely going to be a tea that is flavonoid rich. And so all of those things that we're talking about regularly on this channel about flavonoids should immediately come to mind. They are anti-inflammatory. They're going to reduce inflammation. So they're going to be used for conditions of heat, right? So I'm going to write that back again. Flavonoids. The 3 things that you want to see immediately upon seeing the word flavonoids. If you see that there are flavonoids in a collection of the constituents of plants, what you're going to think is we are reducing inflammation. It's one of the first things. Flavonoids are anti-inflammatory. They are anti-inflammatory through a number of different mechanisms that makes them particularly valuable. They are anti-inflammatory because they reduce inflammatory pathways. And that is the way that most anti-inflammatory medications work. Steroids, NSAID drugs, ibuprofen, aspirin, things like that, reduce inflammation in the body by blocking inflammatory cascades, by blocking inflammatory pathways. That can have consequences. These are the side effects associated with use of those anti-inflammatory compounds. Flavonoids reduce inflammatory pathways without initiating a lot of the side effects associated with them, because they're not reducing broad spectrum all of those anti-inflammatory pathways. They're much more specific. So that is one of the ways that flavonoids reduce inflammation, by blocking those pathways. But the other way, and I think one of the more important ways that flavonoids reduce inflammation, is they do so by increasing tissue strength. And that's really the first thing that you want to think of when you see flavonoids are on the table. You want to think some kind of tissue is becoming stronger, it's becoming healthier. And so we can reduce inflammation in the body by making the tissue that is subject to the inflammation stronger and healthier, more resilient, so that when an inflammatory event occurs, it is limited to the site of the trauma, to the site of the injury, and it's not going to run roughshod through all of the other tissue, the nearby tissue, because that tissue is strong. That tissue is saying, nope, we're strong and we're healthy, and there's no trauma here, so we're not going to inflame. Right? This is a really important distinction as to how to reduce inflammation, because so often people are going the turmeric direction. When they're thinking about anti-inflammatories, we think, oh, turmeric is an anti-inflammatory. Turmeric is a great anti-inflammatory. It's a wonderful anti-inflammatory, but it works really primarily by blocking those inflammatory pathways. And it does it in a more specific sense than the broad spectrum anti-inflammatory medications. In that respect, it is much safer and more effective. But what turmeric is not doing is it's not making those tissues stronger, those tissues that are subject to the inflammation. It's not making them healthier once you finish taking your course of turmeric, right? You're not going to look back and say, wow, now I really see an increase in strength. Where you are going to see that with flavonoids, because that's specifically what they do. They make tissue stronger. So I love that. The other part of that you do want to be mindful of is that whenever we are changing the structure of something, whenever we're building something, that takes time. It takes time to build something. You can block inflammatory pathways. You can change the production of neurotransmitters. You can change the production of enzymes. You can change the production of hormones. There's a lot of things that can happen immediately upon taking herbs that is going to initiate an immediate response. But when you are changing the way something's built, that's not going to be immediate. That's going to be long-term. So flavonoid-rich plants are very, very helpful for inflammation, because they're doing both. We have an immediate blocking of inflammatory pathways. We have a long-term building of tissue strength, so that when you stop taking the flavonoids, the tissue is stronger than when you started. This is the difference between flavonoids and curcuminoids. And you're not relying on regulation of inflammation constantly. You're not constantly trying to reduce that heat, because the body is regulating the inflammation the way it's supposed to, right? We don't want to demonize inflammation. I'll stop talking about inflammation after this. Well, I probably won't, because elderflower is just one of the primary plants for inflammation. So yeah, I'm not going to stop talking about inflammation. We're going to be talking about inflammation today. Inflammation is an important part of our body's defense mode. It is one of the first parts of the immune response. It's really important. We do tend to demonize inflammation, but what we should be mindful of is chronic inflammation that has really been outside the bounds of its benefits. That's when we want to minimize it. And so use of flavonoids any time there's inflammation is going to be spot on. That is immediately what you want to think. So reducing inflammation, increasing tissue strength, which also reduces inflammation. And then the third thing that you want to think of whenever you see flavonoids is that it is reducing oxidation. it is a free radical, right? It's reducing oxidation. That also reduces inflammation, but it reduces damage to the tissue. So oxidation is tissue damage, ongoing tissue damage that can lead to systemic tissue damage. Flavonoids are really, really important antioxidants. Most of the plant-based antioxidants that we talk about are flavonoids, or phenolic compounds, similar. So flavonoids of elderflower, some of the most important parts of the plant, really gives the plant a lot of its therapeutic effects. So we use elder primarily for reducing heat signs in the body. So we're going to use it when there is, for example, fever, right? We'll just talk about the most obvious type of heat in the body. Fever, the body mounts a fever when it has, when there is an infection. There's a pathogen that has entered the body. The body says, hey, you're not supposed to be here, and we want to make this environment a hostile environment for you. And so we're going to mount a fever. We're going to increase the body's metabolic functioning. We're going to increase heat. And so we're going to, kick you out. And that's very effective, particularly for viruses. So in an adult, generally, what we're going to see when we see fever responses, it is most likely to be a viral infection. Viruses really have a very narrow margin of temperature that they're comfortable in. And so fever is really effective for a virus. And so we do want to be mindful. Thankfully, these days, we seem to be much more respectful of fevers, which is really nice, because not too long ago, the immediate response that most people had to viruses was reduce the temperature, just knock that fever down. And we are in dominant culture, we're gaining a respect and an understanding, more so anyway, of the complexity and the intelligence of the body's innate immune system. So when our immune system is mounting a fever, when it's increasing its temperature, we want to respect that. We want to say, yes, body, do this thing, increase that temperature so that you can kick out the pathogen, the virus that has entered. Absolutely do that. What we don't want to do is we don't want to go, oh, my body, my temperature is in triple digits. I better take an ibuprofen, which will cool my body temperature down, because your body invests a tremendous amount of metabolic energy, energy into making that fever response. That is an incredible amount of energy that the body has put into that. And now you have just knocked it back. You've neutralized it, which is unfortunate. And so that's going to not only take a lot of resources away, but the other most important thing is that is a trigger for the virus to replicate even more. Viral replication goes up tremendously after we take something that is an anti-febrifuge, something that relieves fever. Sometimes you need to reduce fever. We're talking about using elderflower for fevers. Sometimes you need to reduce a fever because someone is really uncomfortable and they need to be made more comfortable. So elderflower can be very good for that because it helps to alleviate fever by opening up the surface channels as a diaphoretic. So the diaphoretic quality of elderflower is one of the reasons that it is a plant that is classically used for cold and flu. It is almost always going to be in any kind of a Western herbal formula for cold and flu. You should generally have elderflower. Some people may also want to put the berries, but really the flower is very, very traditional in Western herbalism. So because the flower has this diaphoretic effect. So when you drink elderflower tea, I've got some elderflower tea there if you'd like to drink some. If you drink a strong cup of elderflower tea and then you go and you bundle up, you are going to experience diaphoresis. You are going to be sweating. Hi, Mike. My Dutch book shows specific action with the diaphoretic viruses like corona, adenoinfluenza and rhinovirus types, exactly. And those viruses like to inhabit certain types of tissues, like the rhinovirus likes to inhabit the mucous membranes of the nasal canal because that has the specific temperature that it likes. The influenza virus tends to like deeper down in the respiratory tract. So yes, they will inhabit different areas because those areas will have the temperature that they're happiest at. But using a diaphoretic plant is going to help to move that heat. So as the body's mounting that fever, it is going to be moving that heat outwards. So that's why that diaphoretic effect is specific to those viruses. So as we sweat, as we open up that external structure of the skin and release that heat outward, we're going to notice sweating. And that's what we want to see. We want to see the fever break. We want to see the heat released to the exterior of the body, because that's different than suppressing the temperature, right? That's different than reducing the fever. We're not reducing the temperature. We're letting the body release that heat outward so that it's radiating that heat outward, and that has an effect of lowering body temperature. At the same time, elderflower is very good for relaxing and opening up the respiratory tract, so it's very good for any type of congestion in the lungs, and also very specifically in the sinuses. It is very good for allergies and for and for colds and flus, we've said, because not only does it have that diaphoretic effect, but it's also, because of this flavonoid chemistry, it is very good as a mucous membrane astringent, a tonic. So it helps to, when your mucous membranes, when your sinuses specifically are boggy, when they're kind of congested and full of fluids and just you're just full of snot. Elderflower is one of the primary plants that we're going to use to help to reduce that stagnation, reduce the fluid in there, and help to strengthen those tissues so that they can be less reactive to hay fever and allergies, be less reactive to the presence of the rhinovirus in those tissues. So now there's a couple of different effects that we're talking about when we're taking something like elderflower for cold and flu. So we have some immediate effects of diaphoresis, we have immediate effects of anti-inflammatory, and we have the long-term effects of tissue strength. So we don't want to only think about those long-term effects and that we're not going to experience relief. We absolutely experience relief. There's some elderflower tea right there if you like some. So lung support, immune support, diaphoretic support. Skin support is another way that we use elderflower. Oh, hold on. I just want to go back a little bit and talk about specifically with the allergies and with the sinuses. There is that quality of both stagnation of fluids, right? An accumulation of fluids in the sinuses that elderflower is specific for. And we also see that accumulation of fluids in the skin of blood, as we see things like rosacea, cuperous skin, where there's a lot of stagnation. There's a lot of blood flow has moved up to the skin, and it tends to stay there. So we see red, occasionally purplish color. So here we have fluid, in this case blood, has accumulated in the area and stays there. The blood vessels tend to be inflamed, have moved to the surface of the skin, and there isn't a lot of movement of blood. In the sinuses, we can see there isn't a lot of movement of mucus, of waste products here. In both of these cases, we're looking at increasing movement of fluids, of this underlying stagnation, in order to reduce heat. And that is a unique concept with elderflower, because generally, if we're looking at things for moving fluids, we're looking at warming herbs. We're looking at herbs like rosemary and ginger and cayenne and those spicy herbs, even turmeric, as we were talking about anti-inflammatories. We're looking at those spicy herbs, but when we have someone that's presenting with a lot of those heat signs, we don't necessarily want to be using a lot of those heating herbs. That's not going to feel good, even if it helps to relieve some of the stagnation of the fluids that they're focused on, you might see that heat showing up in other areas. The ginger might help the sinuses feel better, but it's burning a hole in their stomach, right? So the elderflower is really beneficial because we have both that cooling effect, cooling heat, strengthening tissues, but also moving those fluids in the body. And so it's really unique, and it makes it so beneficial for a wide range of different conditions. But if you think about that quality, you're going to be able to like apply the virtues of elderflower to a wider range of conditions. So I have different plants here that I brought in that I thought would be, that are traditionally used in combination with elderflower, or I thought would be really fun for y'all to do. Would it work on the middle ear area? So again, if we think of middle ear congestion, oftentimes there's that fluid accumulation. So you might notice some sensitivity and a feeling of pressure, Mike, that would indicate a lot of fluid buildup in there, in which case, absolutely, because that's what elderflower is doing, is it's helping with that. You could also do some lymphatic massage, drainage behind the ear, in front of the ear. There's a lot of lymphatic activity underneath your chin. There's all these lymph glands here and underneath your ear, and that helps to move a lot of that stagnant fluid that can be that middle ear pain. You can also have more just pure inflammation in the middle ear and not necessarily that fluid. There might even be a pattern of dryness in there. You often see that in the more external otitis externa kind of things. We see a disruption of the mucous membranes, and it's kind of leading to that outer ear. And that's more a pattern of dryness and not a pattern of stagnation. And so we want to go in and introduce some moisture there. So that's what I would ask yourself is, does it feel like there's an accumulation of fluid in there? A more common issue with middle ear. Does it feel like there is more dryness, which is a rarer thing, but might also be your condition? Elderflower would be fine for both of them, but if there was that pattern of dryness, I would also want to add to that something that would help to bring more moisture into the body, right? Which will be some of the plants that we're talking about here. Okay, so we have the elderflower, and we're looking at the elderflower, so that you'll be formulating with that. One of the very common recipes for elder, this is one of the basic cold and flu recipes, is elderflower and yarrow and lemon balm. And sometimes other things will be added to this. It's very traditional to add mint to that. That is my favorite. I really love that combination. This is a classic cold and flu recipe. You will see this kind of basic recipe in most Western herbal cold and flu formulas, just because it works so well. It tastes good. It feels good. It's appropriate for children, even to very young children. It's not too, with the mint, you can adjust the mint to be a spearmint. Some younger kids find peppermint too spicy, or you could keep the mint out of it. Yeah, this combination is great. So I have those plants here because you can't talk about elderflower and not have yarrow and lemon balm and mint here. So if we look at these together, yarrow is also a plant that stabilizes tissues and improves the strength. It keeps blood in its channels specifically and helps to move blood within those channels. So if you're dealing with conditions of stagnation of blood inside the channels, again, looking at cuprous skin, rosacea, any kind of vascular issues where you'd be using elderflower, yarrow is a classic herb to combine with it, or any kind of heat signs with that. Yarrow and lemon balm, elderflower, yarrow, and lemon balm are also the three primary diaphoretics. So if you are dealing with a flu, or if you're dealing with a fever and you really want to knock out that fever, that is the combination. And it is great to use for children with fevers. They're very safe herbs for use with children. They're appropriate. You can even use them in a baby, giving them a bath. This is, again, very, very traditional. If you're dealing with a baby that has fevers, and quite often with a very young child, their immune system is trying to figure out how to be in the world, and they're going to mount fevers for a much wider range of conditions. It's not, in a child, just viral infections. It's kind of anything going on. Now, when you have a newborn and you have a fever, you always want to get medical attention, because a newborn really doesn't know how to regulate their immune system. And if there's a fever, you absolutely want to catch anything going on. But once you have a younger, an older, more kind of stable infant,
6 months?
6 months, 4 months, 6 months, right about there, they're going to be getting fevers a lot. And it's not that you don't want to care for their fever, but fevers are not that big a thing. A fever is their body's way of mounting a response to an invasion. And so we want their bodies to experience fevers within a reasonable framework. So we can give them a tea like this to help them to feel more comfortable as they're doing it, but we can also, as comfortable as we feel with that, we can take more of a hands-off or a wait-and-see type approach, right? Yes.
So for a bath,
Mhm.
would you brew the tea first and then put it in the bath, or would you put the herbs into the bath?
I brew the tea. It's such a great question. I brew the tea and put the tea into the bath, because the bath water, it's not hot enough
Will
to
it
steep.
do anything?
I don't think so. I mean, you'll see it'll turn a little bit of color,
Okay.
but
I've put herbs in my bath before, and I'm
Mhm.
like, I don't know if this is really doing anything.
I mean, it feels nice
Yeah,
to have the
it's
herbs
like
in the bath. It's like,
romantic.
yes, romantic, and there is healing in that.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. But if you want the therapeutic effects of herbs, bring a pot of water to a boil on the stove, put your herbs in there, put the lid on, let them steep there, strain that out, and then put that in. And then if you also want to put the herbs in your bath, totally, absolutely, you can. But that way you've really extracted all of the herbs. Yes. Did you also have a?
It was about using it so for infant basis to use it to be in a bath.
Yeah, I love baths for infants. It's not always easy to get the herbs in. You're not always sure, is this absolutely safe? I wouldn't use mint in an infant, by the way. But these are really commonly used. They're just fine. But yeah, a bath, it's great. Just stick them in there. Baths are always healing. Baths are just one of the best things to give to kids and adults. If they're feeling grumpy, throw them in a bath and throw a little bit of tea in there, let them splash around. They're gonna feel really great. These three are also really good and very specific for any kind of skin heat signs. So rashes, any kind of rashes, burns, the skin looks red, hot, inflamed, it's raised, it's irritated. There may be an underlying irritation or a surface irritation. For anything like this, these herbs are going to be really effective. Mint, especially if there is a lot of heat there, mint can be in a combination like this or in a tea. The menthol of mint is really, really nice for cooling heat. So if you do have something like a burn, you can make a tea blend of elderflower and yarrow and mint together and use that topically on the burn. And it's going to be very nice. And the menthol is going to feel very cooling with that. With that, you can also add in rose. So rose is a classic cooling plant. And so the topical use of elder, or when elder is used any time where we're specifically looking at cooling heat, and not necessarily for relieving that stagnation. So again, we can differentiate between those two. Heat is going to be more red, acute, raised, hot, inflamed. Stagnation is more kind of purple and old and long-term. Elderflower is very good for either of those, but what we combine the elderflower with is going to change depending on which tissue state we're working with. Trinity says, I made a glycerite for the kids with elderflower, licorice, marshmallow, and chamomile. That sounds delicious. I also made tea with chamomile, elderflower, pineapple peels, and sometimes add ginger. That sounds so good, Trinity. Wow. And that glycerite sounds like a perfect kind of all-purpose glycerite. I love things like that. Yeah, I love blends like that. Because you're like, I don't know, kid, you got something wrong with you? Here, take some of this glycerite. And it's likely to be helpful. That's a good thing to do. Let's see, lemon balm, chamomile. So chamomile, again, for heat signs in the skin or heat throughout the body. And here we can also look at heat emotionally. Heat emotionally is going to be irritability, anger, frustration. We can also use plants like elderflower, lemon balm, rose, chamomile are really good for those inflammatory emotions when we just need to cool down, right? That is a type of heat also, and elderflower is also very, very good for that, for releasing that heat and kind of cooling that down. So chamomile, lovely. Chamomile, we've talked before about the virtues of chamomile. I think that chamomile, and I love that you have it in your blend, Trinity, for your kids. Chamomile is for the toddler in all of us when we're just feeling grumpy and we're feeling like we need a nap and a snack. You need a nap and a snack and you're grumpy about it. And that is chamomile medicine. That's when you're like, I know life is really, really hard and you have to make decisions. You have to adult and you have to like do things that you don't want to do. Drink some chamomile, take some chamomile glycerol, take some elderflower and chamomile, and maybe a little bit of lemon balm too, because lemon balm is kind of uplifting and happy and also calming. You can make some really, really lovely shifts in your mental state by using these herbs for those emotional, these over-inflamed emotional situations also. Let's see, yarrow. Oh, I have tulsi there. So tulsi would be perfect in that type of a situation. Tulsi also helps with focus. So sometimes those inflamed situations make us hard. It makes it hard to like think clearly because there's all this heat and irritability. So adding something like tulsi in is really, really great. Lemon balm also. Lemon balm and tulsi are both really good for just helping with, okay, and I need help with that focus. And then I also have linden in there because linden is just moistening. It's cooling and moistening and it tastes like honey and it's so beautiful. And so linden is a great one when we do want to get more moisture into that formula. I mean, sure, you can use marshmallow, you can use slippery elm or standard ones, but it's nice to have other moistening plants. Licorice, also exceptional moistening. So linden is a great one. And linden being a very light textured leaf and flower, it extracts very rapidly. So, a lot of what we've got here is leaf and flower medicine. So it's nice to have leaf and flower plants to choose along with the leaf and flower medicine. So I think that is all of that. Elderflower, yarrow, lemon balm, mint, rose, and chamomile, and tulsi. Yes, and linden. Yes.
I remember we had a class where we combined goldenrod and elderflower.
Yeah.
Which tastes like ice bright.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So to repeat, this was a class on allergies. And so we were using elderflower combined with goldenrod. So goldenrod is a plant that is very rich in one flavonoid that we see here in this yellow color. And we know that elderflower is rich in it. Goldenrod is also. So goldenrod and elderflower both, and nettles also, are good sources of this specific flavonoid, quercetin. Now, we were talking about that when you see flavonoids, you want to think about specific things that they do. And one of the things that they do is strengthen tissues. And when you know the specific flavonoid, you know the specific tissue that they're strengthening. Before you know the tissue, you don't know, before you know the flavonoid, you don't necessarily know what tissue is being strengthened. You just know it's going to take care of something. But once you know the specific flavonoid, you're like, now I can see more directly how this plant is going to be providing support. So one of the ways, now this is only one of the flavonoids that is in elderflower, but it's an important one. And the way that quercetin works is it stabilizes mast cells. Mast cells are immune cells that release histamine. They are the memory cells, and they release histamine when they see something they don't like, when they see something they're allergic to, when they see something they're reactive to. And so some people have mast cells that are really, really reactive, and they're just producing histamine all over the place. They're just releasing histamine, so they're constantly having these allergic responses. You can take quercetin as a supplement. You can go and buy a bottle of it, 60 capsules for like $30, and take it, and it's very, very effective for stabilizing those mast cell walls. It makes those mast cell walls stronger, and as they are stronger, they're less reactive. They're less likely to just be producing histamine at the slightest provocation. They're still going to be producing histamine when appropriate, but it's not going to be quite so reactive. So it's a very good thing to use when you have histamine type reactions like sinus allergies. So quercetin is very high in elderflower, and it's a very, very high in goldenrod. It is the yellow flower of the goldenrod flowers, the yellow color of the goldenrod flowers. And so the combination of elderflower and goldenrod together is really great for allergies, for dripping eyes, for allergies. And it is really nice to bring up what you had said, because this is also really important. One of the plants that is commonly used for allergies is a plant called eyebright. And if you look in Western herb books, you will quite often see, and today people are often talking about eyebright on TikTok and on the internet. People often talk about eyebright as a plant for allergies. It works really well. It's very effective for it. The problem is that eyebright has a very narrow range of distribution, and it has decreased. It's hard to find because it is a plant that it's not at risk, but it is threatened. And so it's one of those plants that we really don't want to use, especially it's not from around here. If we get eyebright, we're having to go into another area, much more cool and moist area, and yet another plant that we love that comes from cool and moist areas, and we are not. So I really don't like using eyebright. I no longer carry it in our apothecary. But the combination of elderflower and goldenrod is a great substitute for eyebright in any formula. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. So you are going to make a tea blend. Consider a tea blend that where you want to use those virtues of elderflower, either as moving stagnation, and what kind of stagnation do you want to move, and what herbs are going to be supportive with that, or cooling heat. What kind of heat do you want? Is it for emotional heat or skin heat, or kind of systemic heat? Do you want to stabilize those mucous membranes? Do you want to have a cold or a flu blend? So all of these are really safe. They taste delicious. You're not going to go wrong with making any kind of a formula with any of these herbs, as long as you know that you don't have a sensitivity to them. So I'll move them over here so y'all can get blending. Here are bags, and if you want to do proper formulation and assign parts to everything, you certainly could, but I don't think that's necessary. I don't generally, when I'm doing formulas with these kinds. Although I was talking to someone about your formula that you made with the mimosa. Yes, it was.
Okay, that's so funny because I ran into Con yesterday. And we talked about it.
Oh, that's so funny.
I ran into them at the Colorado Lagoon. So we started talking about that, and it's just funny.
That's hilarious. Yes. Okay, because they had told me to make sure to get that recipe. Because I gave it to them. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, no, but that was before you'd see it. So cool. There you go. Throw a formula together. If you do feel like you want to do the specific ratios, you absolutely can, but just throw it together. Do you all there have any questions about anything that we have talked about today? I'll give you a few minutes to think about that and post it, and if not, then I will let you all go. Next Monday, we will go to a new plant. If you have any plants that you want to vote for, you can certainly throw them into the comments. Otherwise, I'll just decide on my own. And if you don't have any questions, I'm going to let you all go. Thanks so much for showing up. And Tremedies. So, mushrooms, Mike. I mean, that's a whole. Do you have a specific question about the shroomies? Because shroomies takes us down a whole different pathway. And I like shrooms, but honestly, there are people who have devoted their whole lives to the study of the mushrooms, and so those are the people that I go to for mushroom education. So I'm happy to talk to you about stuff, but yeah, I would go moringa, specific one, just because it's so abundant. Yeah. Hi, Lori. We just did albizia. We just did albizia. It was the plant right before this. So we did an exploration, and then we did formulation. So your wish, Lori, is granted. Before you even ask it, I will grant your wish, just because I love you so. Good to see you. Yeah, Mike. I don't know. It seems like I see the versicolor a lot. What would be a great resource for you? The mushroom guy that I love is Robert Rogers. Robert Rogers, brilliant mushroom guy. So smart. Really kind and very willing to share information. He's on, or was, when I was on Facebook more. I was on Facebook a lot before, and he was always there, was just so kind and so willing to share information. So you might go hunting him down and ask him about the Tremedies. But also, he has books, and one of my favorite books of his, I think I've got it right here. Hold on. If I don't, yes, I do. I have it right here. This is one of the books that he's written. Check that out. It is the only book of its kind that I've seen. So it's only human clinical trials. So there's a whole bunch of information on shrooms that is important and helpful because it comes from population studies. There's information that people have, their anecdotal information, but there's a lot of information out there that is just extrapolation, hyperbole, and it isn't based on human clinical trials. So this book just goes through all of the mushrooms, all of their information, extensive information, and it does talk about some of the other, like for the reishi, you'll see that it wasn't just the Ganoderma lucidum, but the other Ganodermas that he also included if there were human clinical trials on them. Yeah, he doesn't have Tremedies in this book, but he has another book. So, and then he's also just available online, so I can hunt him. You would hunt him down and ask him questions. All right. Moringa would be fine, and I have a moringa tree growing right out there. I'm looking at it. The only thing that makes me hesitate about Moringa Trinity is that it's, although this is why I should do it, it's gotten that sort of superfood status right now, and people are, it always feels kind of icky to me when people do that to a plant. It's like, oh, it's just a plant. It's really lovely. It's a great plant. But when people start talking about it, it's like, oh, it's just magical. It's like, calm down. It's just a plant. And it's a plant that's really nourishing. I mean, it is very, very nourishing. That's one of the benefits. It's one of the primary benefits, is it grows really abundantly. It's able to make a lot of foliage. That foliage is really, really nourishing. It doesn't require a lot of resources, so it can be grown in a lot of different environments, providing nutrition and food and healing and medicine to people. So it's really great in that way. So is nettle. Nettle won't grow as abundantly, it's not a tree. But I think of moringa sort of like nettle in that it's super nourishing and really, really good and abundant in the places that it grows. So I might do that. I will keep that in mind. And maybe I should do it even if I am like not wanting. Nettle seeds, yeah, Mike. Ooh. Actually, I'll have to go back. Has it been a while since I've done nettle? Because Mike, I would love talking about nettle, kind of like the elderflower this time, talking about the flower instead of the berry, because talking about nettle seeds and nettle root instead of the nettle leaf, which is what everyone talks about. Nettle leaf is, everyone knows nettle leaf. But seeds, I love nettle seeds, and root, I love nettle root. Mike, I think maybe you have hit on it. I will go back and check and see when was the last time I talked about nettles. And if it has been a while, male herbs, yeah. Well, you know what? Your moringa seems to be struggling a bit. Oh, mine did, but Lori, I don't know if you've seen the one that I planted in front of the apothecary. It was struggling, and then it just hit its stride, and now it's got the trunk. It's like this big. It feels like overnight it just went like, okay, I'm here, I'm going to grow. So don't give up on your little moringa. Actually, Mike, what it would be really interesting is to talk about male herbs and how and why they're male herbs, because a lot of people look at testosterone boosting plants in everyone, in different bodies, and the way that plants increase testosterone, because the way that plants increase testosterone in bodies that have testicles is different than the way herbs increase testosterone in bodies that have ovaries. Very specific difference. And you cannot take things for increasing testosterone for, if you want something for enhancing sexual arousal, which is testosterone is great for that, but it's not going to be the same on different sex bodies, because that's fascinating. Actually, I really would love to talk about that in that larger kind of construct of testosterone boosting herbs. So I know y'all are giving me some great information here, Mike. Trinity curious said about the difference in nettle and elder. Well, nettle is also one of the plants that's really rich in quercetin. That's one of the primary reasons why nettle is also really good at moving fluids out of the body. It's a diuretic. So you're peeing out excess fluids if you have a lot of those fluids in there. But yeah, nettle, it's one of the same ones. It's very rich in quercetin, really nourishing, and yeah, diuretic. All right. They're all done. So I'm going to let you all go. Thank you so much for feedback. I got some great advice from y'all, and I will see you next week. All right. Love y'all. See you soon. Bye-bye. Okay.